Southern Hearts beat.
Hello everybody, this is Armstrong Hyper Sports here, back in with another video today. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be discussing my picks for the second round of the 2020 NHL playoffs. Well, technically, it's being called the first round of the NHL playoffs because apparently the first round was only considered the qualifying round, which is confusing because does that mean teams like Edmonton and the Penguins didn't actually make the playoffs? If so, that doesn't really make any sense. I don't really like that. Either way. Hopping right into it, guys, let's start off with my results from the first week of play and see how I did. It was a round robin game. A lot of the teams were taking these very seriously, I don't think, so I'm not really going to take it into consideration so much as far as the second round goes. So yeah, overall in the round robin, I wasn't really expecting to get a lot of these matchups correct. However, I think I did pretty well in predicting the majority of them. I was especially pretty impressed with the Stars prediction, them not doing so hot, stuff like that. However, Boston and St. Louis going from what I expected to be a 0-3 to 0-3, definitely very shooken up by that. I mean, goaltenders on both of these two teams played really poorly, and just the teams in general I don't think took it very seriously, although teams like Philly and Vegas did. Overall, I'm not really too worried about it. In my qualifying rounds, I ended up getting a 4-for-8, 50% prediction accuracy rate. My initial predictions were Toronto taking out Columbus, Carolina taking out New York, Pittsburgh taking out Montreal, and the Islanders taking out the Florida Panthers. In the West, I had the Winnipeg Jets taking out the Flames, Arizona taking out Nashville, Edmonton taking out Chicago, and Vancouver taking out Minnesota. The games I got wrong ended up being Toronto against Columbus. I was expecting for Toronto's incredible firepower to really overcome Columbus's great forecheck and defense. Turns out Columbus's forecheck ended up being way better than I was expecting. Toronto didn't really get a chance to get their legs moving. They didn't really seem to be skating like you'd expect them to be doing. For Columbus, their goaltending were incredible. Both Merzlikins and Korpisalo both were brick walls for this Columbus team. And I think it really allowed Columbus's forecheck to really dial in even more. Even though they were giving Toronto a decent amount of chances, Toronto just weren't able to capitalize on those chances. Main reason why Toronto ended up losing this in the fifth game. Second series I got wrong was Pittsburgh versus Montreal. The one prediction I was not expecting to get wrong. Pittsburgh just did not look good on all in all. I thought their goaltending played really poorly. Matt Murray, bad the entire series. But I have to give Montreal some credit. They played really well. Their forecheck really got going. They didn't give Pittsburgh nothing offensively. They really put pressure on Matt Murray a lot. They just played a very solid series against Pittsburgh. And more importantly, they didn't allow Pittsburgh to get that power play going. If that would have happened more often for Pittsburgh, I think they would have been able to win that game. Moving on to the third prediction I got wrong, Winnipeg taking out Calgary. It ended up being the other way around, as the Calgary Flames ended up defeating the Winnipeg Jets 3-1. Winnipeg had two big injuries that really hit them in this series. Both Mark Scheifele and Patrick Laine got injured after game one, and that really hit Winnipeg in the series. That firepower really didn't come through for them. Also, Hellebuck, I expected for him to play incredibly well, especially after watching the exhibition game, and really give Winnipeg that huge edge. It turned out Cam Talbot actually got the better half of Hellebuck, something I definitely was not expecting, as Talbot did not have the most impressive season. I'm impressed by this Calgary team and Talbot. I think that Calgary will have some serious success in this playoffs if everything keeps clicking the way it was. And the fourth and final matchup I got wrong was Edmonton on Chicago. It turned out Chicago got the upset against Edmonton. Both 12 seeds ended up upsetting the 5 seed in both conferences. That's crazy. Edmonton, their firepower didn't really get the chance to get going. It seemed like Chicago's more depth offense and more balanced offense tend to really overwhelm Edmonton. Even with players like Draisaitl and McDavid playing incredibly well for Edmonton, especially McDavid, both of them were just clicking on all cylinders. It seemed like Edmonton was having some issues getting production from the rest of their lineup, which has been a struggle for them in the past. Players like Ennis getting injured was also a big testament to that. Very impressive from the Chicago team. Honestly, this was the one team that surprised me the most out of the 4 matches that I got wrong. I think Chicago could potentially go deep in this playoff. I think that they're definitely looking good. And if they don't do good in this playoffs, I would definitely be on the lookout for them next year. And with that being done, we are now moving on to my predictions for the first round, however you want to call it. Technically, it's the first round of the 2020 NHL playoffs. First seed, Philadelphia Flyers taking on the 12th seed, Montreal Canadiens. Philly and Montreal have both been playing really well. Philadelphia, as we all know, went 3-0 in the round robin. Something I wasn't predicting. Their defense looked incredible, goaltending very solid, and very balanced scoring. Something I definitely wasn't expecting from this Philadelphia roster. And then Montreal, incredible defense, great forecheck, and tremendous play by Carey Price. I even said in my first video that I was expecting for Carey Price to be the X factor. I knew that if Carey Price played well, along with this forecheck getting going, I was expecting for Pittsburgh to have some issues. Overall in this series, looking at it from a goaltending standpoint, you have Carey Price going up against Carter Hart. This is going to be extremely close. I think the less experienced Carter Hart versus the very experienced Carey Price, I think both these goalies are going to trade blows pretty easily. I think at the end of the day, you will probably have Carey Price getting the better half of Carter Hart. Defensively wise, Montreal had a very good performance in their first series against Pittsburgh. Specifically, Petrie played incredibly well, getting a game-winning goal and an overtime winner. Extremely clutch he was for Montreal. Despite that, I'm expecting for Philly to outperform Montreal defensively, on paper, and in overall performance. However, don't be surprised if Montreal's incredible forecheck makes some issues for Philadelphia's back end. I'm expecting for Philly to take this game. However, don't be surprised if Montreal take Philadelphia pretty seriously. I would be surprised if this is a cakewalk for Philly, especially after Montreal having loads of confidence after taking out Pittsburgh. However, I am expecting for Philadelphia to win this matchup 4-2. Moving on to the second matchup in the Eastern Conference, the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets coming in hot after their incredible win against Toronto. Toronto not exactly having their best series. Nonetheless, Columbus definitely impressed. That top defensive pairing of Jones and Werenski played incredibly well. Forecheck incredibly well. I don't really see a single weak spot on this Columbus roster. That plus solid goaltending is going to be an extremely difficult task to overcome for Tampa Bay. Not to mention, this is going to be the rematch from last year's performance. As we all remember, Tampa Bay, the President's Trophy winner, setting all of those records, coming up against Columbus, expecting to sweep them aside easily and make their run at the Cup. Columbus Blue Jackets and John Tortorella just completely closed the door on Tampa Bay. Columbus's forecheck really was an issue for Tampa Bay, plus the goaltending. A lot of people would argue that that's a different Columbus team. They're missing Sergei Bobrovsky. They're missing Artemi Panarin. They're missing Duchesne. A lot of key pieces there that were integral to Columbus overcoming Tampa Bay in a sweep fashion. Despite having all of those injuries this regular season, leading the league in men games lost, still managing to get the 9th overall seed in the league. That is impressive on its own, being able to overcome all those injuries and still maintain a playoff position. That's definitely something to talk about when it comes to Columbus. I'm expecting for Columbus to overcome the Tampa Bay Lightning yet again in a 4-3 Game 7 fashion. I was really impressed with Columbus against Toronto. Their forecheck looked really good offensively. I'm expecting for players like Dubros to really come out big. Liam Foudy played an incredible series against Toronto. I'd never even heard of this guy before that series. He seemed like he was on the ice every single time I was hearing his name. He was getting on the scoreboard. He was really an integral part of Columbus's roster. Right now, it shows him on the third line. I would not be surprised to see Tortorella potentially move him up to first or second line. So yeah, Columbus, 4-3. Moving on to the third matchup in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Capitals taking on the New York Islanders. This is going to be a good series. Trotz taking on his former team. From a goaltending standpoint goes, Braden Holtby has not had the best year at all, and in the round robin he wasn't exactly that good either. However, there were a couple games where he did look pretty solid. There's been a lot of talk about him taking a lot of time off in the break to really work on his game. On the Islanders side of the spectrum, they are currently coming off of beating the Florida Panthers in a 3-1 fashion, playing incredibly well, defense looking really good, expected out of Trotz. With players like Eberle and Beauvillier coming up really big for this Islanders roster, I would not be surprised if they end up keeping up with Washington offensively, especially with Washington having a bit of an off year. From an offensive standpoint goes, I am expecting for Washington to get ahead of the Islanders here. That is why I am taking the Washington Capitals to barely edge out the New York Islanders 4-3. I think this is going to be an extremely close series. I'm expecting for Washington to maybe take the Islanders a bit lightly, allowing them to maybe pick up an extra game or two. Plus, Semyon Varlamov playing incredibly well for this Islanders roster. In my opinion, probably one of the best performing goaltenders in the NHL right now, maybe just behind guys like Korpisalo and Darcy Kuemper. Moving on to the fourth and final matchup in the Eastern Conference, Boston taking on Carolina. This will be a good series. Boston did not play that good in the round robin, going 0-3. Definitely not looking very good. However, this was without Tuukka Rask in all the games, and without Pastrnak in a couple of games. There's been a lot of talk if Pastrnak or Tuukka Rask are going to be able to play against Carolina. There's, for example, in the last practice, Pastrnak actually did not attend, nor did Tuukka Rask. However, there's a lot of talk from the coach that he's expecting for both these players to be back before their game. If that happens, I'm expecting for Boston to win in a 4-2 fashion. If Pastrnak or Tuukka Rask do not play, or at least are out for the first couple of games, which I kind of am expecting, 4-3 Boston. I'm just expecting for this Boston offense to kind of overwhelm Carolina's offense. Where Carolina, this offense still has yet to prove to me that they can get it done in a playoff scenario. Expect for both of these defenses to be clashing and really clogging up the neutral zone. I am not expecting a high-scoring series here. I'm expecting for Boston to barely edge out Carolina in a lot of these games. Expect a lot of 3-2 Bostons, 1-2 Bostons, maybe some overtimes. I'm expecting for these games to go down to the wire. Moving on to the Western Conference, the Vegas Golden Knights take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks, after playing an incredible series against Edmonton. Edmonton really did not look their sharpest. I was expecting for them to play a lot better. They didn't. Blackhawks played amazingly. But now they have to go against a Vegas team who went 3-0 in the round robin and looked pretty unbeatable. As far as the goaltending goes for Vegas, we are still not sure what the goaltending situation is going to be for them. Whether they're going to play Marc-Andre Fleury or Robin Lehner, there's still a lot of talk about that. Personally, I'm expecting for Marc-Andre Fleury to get the start in this series as he's the more experienced goaltender, and I think Vegas is going to expect him to get it done in this series. From an offensive standpoint, I'm expecting for Vegas to get the slight edge over Chicago, but don't be surprised if Chicago definitely keeps up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a very high-scoring series. Expect a lot of 5-4s, expect a lot of 3-4s, 4-3s. This is going to be an incredibly high-scoring lineup. I'm not expecting for these teams to play very scrappy. I'm not expecting a lot of defensive play from either of these teams. I'm expecting a lot of offense, forecheck, and probably these two power plays to explode and put up some serious numbers. In the end, though, I'm expecting for the Vegas Golden Knights to outlast the Chicago Blackhawks 4-2. Moving on to the second series in the Western Conference, the Colorado Avalanche are playing against the Arizona Coyotes. Arizona is a team that I had a lot of confidence going into this playoffs in. I thought their goaltending is really good. Darcy Kuemper has been playing incredibly for them. Their defense has been playing incredibly well. One of the best defenses I've seen in a while. And an offense that definitely can put up some numbers unexpectedly. However, as far as an offensive standpoint goes, I'm expecting for Colorado to definitely outmatch the Arizona Coyotes offense. As Arizona definitely has a lot of good pieces on this offense. Dvorak played incredibly well for them. Keller has played really well, not to mention Phil Kessel. However, I'm expecting for Colorado to be able to pierce that brick wall that is Darcy Kuemper, at least the majority of nights, for them to barely edge out the Arizona Coyotes 4-2. Moving on to the third matchup in the Western Conference, the Dallas Stars are taking on the Calgary Flames. Calgary, after taking out the Winnipeg Jets just last series, Winnipeg being a very injured team, not exactly being at full strength, plus Hellebuck not having his best series. Besides all of this, Calgary really impressed me. Cam Talbot specifically, I wasn't expecting for him to have the best playoffs, but he's looked really good. Offensively, a lot of these players are producing for Calgary when they need it the most. Defensively, they gave Winnipeg's other forwards zero room. As far as Dallas goes, great defense, incredible coach. Goaltending standpoint, it seems like they're going to have Ben Bishop back for that game, which will definitely help them out a ton. I think despite that, Ben Bishop played the first round robin game for them and did not exactly make a huge dent in the outcome of that game. However, with Ben Bishop being rusty, also not exactly having the best game one. On the other hand, Cam Talbot has looked in game shape since day one, plus he already has a few practice games in against the Jets, who definitely are no pushover from an offensive standpoint, even without Patrick Laine or Scheifele. I am expecting for Calgary to edge out the Dallas Stars 4-2. Moving on to the fourth and final matchup in the Western Conference, the St. Louis Blues are taking on the Vancouver Canucks. Similar to Boston, I'm not really going to take the round robin into that much consideration, as I don't think a lot of these teams were really taking these matchups seriously, as the majority of them were just debate to get seeding under control. Because of that, I am expecting for St. Louis to definitely play a lot better in this game. In an actual best of 7 series, you're going to play a lot better than just a 1-goal scenario, which doesn't really have any outcome on the playoffs. Where this is do or die time, a scenario which St. Louis know what to do from last year. Jacob Markstrom, another young goalie who I think could potentially deal with some pressure in the playoff scenario, versus Binnington or Jake Allen, whoever it is. Both have extreme experience in a playoff scenario and both know how it feels to be under the lights. I'm looking at the St. Louis roster, I'm looking at how poorly they played in the round robin offensively. I'd be surprised if they managed to score any more than 3 goals per game. You're probably going to get 2, 3 at the most from this team, as it seems like the only player on this team who had any offensive spark at all in the round robin was Perron. However, if you can get guys like O'Reilly and Tarasenko moving, that offense could easily get rejuvenated fast. Vancouver, on the other hand, you can expect some big things out of Brock Besser. I think he's the type of player to not really let the pressure get to him. I think we could definitely see him performing well in the series, potentially a point per game. St. Louis 4-1. With that being said, that concludes my predictions for the second round of the 2020 NHL playoffs, which will lead the seeds as Boston versus Columbus. First seed Boston, 4th seed Columbus. Second seed Washington Capitals and 4th seed Philadelphia and 3rd seed Philadelphia Flyers facing off in the third round. First seed St. Louis Blues facing off against the 4th seed Calgary Flames, and the 2nd seed Colorado Avalanche facing off against the 3rd seed Vegas Golden Knights. If you enjoyed it, please smash that like button and smash that subscribe button if you really liked it. Smash that little bell next to the subscribe button so you do not miss out on my next video. My next video will probably be the prediction for the third round of the NHL playoffs. Stay tuned for that. I am hoping that my predictions can probably go from a 50% to maybe a 30%. Let's pray for that. In the meantime, guys, I am going to go shave my playoff beards as my Leafs ended up getting knocked out to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm sad. I will better look next year. In other news, the NHL draft lottery, the New York Rangers ended up claiming the first overall pick and potentially getting Alexis Lafreniere. I'm going to be completely honest. Kako, Lafreniere, Adam Fox, Panarin, Zibanejad. If that doesn't sound scary, I don't know what does. Add that plus Shesterkin, I would definitely be aware of the Rangers next year, and you could potentially see them getting back to the playoffs for sure. Thank you everybody for watching this video, and Armstrong Hyper Sports signing out. Peace.